Immortal John Hancock here, and I'm happy to announce that I've just purchased a Sega Saturn Holy Grail. I'm super excited about having this in my collection, and it is Daytona USA, that's right, the Netlink edition, complete with supplemental manual and disc. Now, I want to talk about the differences a little bit between this and the other versions, and also a message to collectors collecting disc media. There's some things I think you need to consider when purchasing Holy Grail items and rare items. Let's check it out. I'm going to talk about the different versions of Daytona USA and focusing on North American releases. And here is Daytona USA. This was an early version of it for the Saturn. It was rushed. There was issues with it. It wasn't the best. Later on, it came packaged with 3 free games. They're really trying to promote the Saturn and failing miserably to PlayStation. And so what they did is they bundled 3 games together, and this is a Daytona USA not for resale version. And it came with, sometimes you find this secondhand, you'll find it in a little paper sleeve that was bundled with a cardboard box with a black and white manual along with Virtua Cop and Virtua Fighter 2. And so that is a black and white manual, not to be confused with the other version. So that's pretty common. You can find this version of Daytona USA pretty cheap. Then what they did is they went back and made a better version of Daytona USA with better physics, more tracks, and I do believe more cars. And that's Daytona USA Championship Circuit Edition. And that's what this looks like. The disc is, I would say, red. And that's what it looks like with this manual. And that's a pretty common one too that you find. Again, it's a 3 versions already of Daytona USA. Not confusing whatsoever. And here it is. Here it is, the Holy Grail. And this is Daytona USA CCE Netlink Edition. And what it is, it was a mail order away. You could send away for this. And it has the same packaging as Championship Circuit Edition. The same case. You can even use this as a replacement for the outer casing and one of the manuals, but this is different. It came with an additional, supplemental manual talking about some Netlink features. Talks about going online, how to do it, using a keyboard to communicate. And this is very rare. This is, this manual has gone for hundreds of dollars. It is really hard to get. So if you have this manual in particular, if you have this game in your collection, this version, it's expensive. I love that it talks about, in this manual, talks about chat etiquette. Something that a couple people may need to learn to review. Thought that was pretty funny. And on the back here, so that is a very rare supplemental manual. And in here, the actual disc is different. It says not for resale on it, and it's got the Netlink edition on top. And so it's more of a burgundy versus red disc. Also want to let you know it's just a really, really clean copy of it. Just really nice shape. I'm really happy to have that condition disc in my collection. And that's it. Let's check out some other differences. This is Daytona USA Championship Circuit Edition, and this is the title screen for this common version of Daytona USA. Now there's 3 versions. I know it's really confusing, but this is the Championship Circuit Edition title screen, and this is what it looks like. This is not talked about a lot because there is disc differences, but the title screen on Daytona USA CCE Netlink Edition is a little different. For one thing, it says Netlink on it, and the Circuit Edition down there, Sega Enterprise Limited 1994 and 1997, unlike the previous title screen with 1996. It's a small thing, but it's just another thing that's different between these two versions. What I'm doing is I'm taking this disc, which is very expensive, and running it on an optical drive. And this is a Plextor. I got this from my good Sega Saturn friend Ke, and I'm testing this. I'm testing this for errors, and so he set this up for me. And pretty much the reason why you want to test your Sega Saturn games or Sega CD or really any optical media, and there's different ways of doing that, versus just testing it on a console. This is going to go through and really dig into each sector. So testing it this way is going to check each sector of the disc to make sure that the data is alright, and it's checking for errors. Now, errors happen for various reasons: scratches, scuffs, disc rot. Disc rot is real, especially for Sega Saturn stuff. And you know, the day and age of just popping a disc in and testing it to make sure it plays, honestly, is not good enough. You have to check for errors. Errors can look like many different things. They can have a stutter in sound, a freeze, and you know, depending on the error, it would be the severity of, you know, if a game can even be finished. And so if you're spending lots of money on optical media and discs, especially disc media, this is something you have to consider. I don't want people to be paranoid, but it's real. And you know, I'm going to go through my entire Sega Saturn collection and see if any of it has errors. And I think it's okay to ask. Now, when I purchased this from a mega collector, by the way, Savitor, when I asked that I was going to test this on this media drive, he was totally fine with it, and he was honest with me. He said, "Yep, tested this, and you know, I hope it works." And he was totally fine with me testing it before, you know, paying him a decent amount of money. So I think that this is the way to do it, and just having your sectors of your media checked out is very important. Now, I'm not a technical guy, but I can read this program, and when it says no errors, then you know it's good. And so right now, that's what it's doing. It's going through and testing each sector to make sure that there isn't any errors. That's what you want. No C2 errors is what it's going to say. And so I'll show you at the end of this and go from there. That's what you want when testing your disc on your computer. No C2 errors. Nothing. There's nothing wrong with this. It's a clean disc. That means there's no problems yet. I don't want this to be a negative message, but I think in this day and age, collecting Sega Saturn, Sega CD, PlayStation, now's the time to start checking for errors. Disc rot is real. Certain game consoles are more prone to it. Sega Saturn's one of them. There is a lot of disc rot going on, and it's something you have to check for, especially when you're spending a decent amount of money on something. It's good to check it to make sure it's 100% there. Anyways, huge thank you to Savitor, huge collector, and he reached out to me. He actually saw my video that I did with Metal Jesus Rocks and reached out to me afterwards, and we coordinated this meetup, and I'm really happy to finally have this Holy Grail in my collection. And I'm down to about 13 Sega Saturn games, and I need parts of other games, Sega Saturn games, to go in my collection. So total about 20 or so. And yeah, I'm really excited about having this in my collection, and want to thank Ke. Ke, great friend of mine, and he's part of the Sega Saturn Shiro podcast. And he has some great information. Link below if you want to listen to that. It's a great podcast. I was on a previous episode with some other Sega Saturn collectors and I had a lot of fun with that. Thank you so much for people continuing to tune in to my humble channel as I march towards 80,000 subs. I'm really excited. Channel keeps growing, and I'm really happy to finally cover this Holy Grail on my channel. Thank you so much. Folks are wonderful and beautiful. This is the immortal John Hancock. You take care.